I always enjoy being sent bad takes on the Disney versus DeSantis issue. You know, sometimes they can give me insight into another thing I need to explain on YouTube, or something that needs further videos or further illumination, or really something that I can just go into further detail. Some make me laugh, and some are a bit of both. So today's article is one that rose up there. It was especially dumb and bad. And on top of that, it was from a supposedly based libertarian. Oh no, they're based. Look at that. We got to counter some based Chads and Stacy's. Yeah, we're going to do it today here live on this channel. Of course, this is the Legal Mindset. We teach you to be your own judge. And I'm Andrew Esquire, an actual Florida attorney with actually almost a decade in experience in special districts and local government in Central Florida, particularly all the special districts surrounding Disney, Celebration, Bonnet Creek, Reunion, all these other folks that were all around Disney. So I know that area, I know the law, and I know this very well. And there is now yet another laughable First Amendment take. And I just really wanted to counter it because I think these are the especially toxic takes, because they're from people who call themselves on the right or right-ish, even though I'd argue that these people are actually kind of weird milquetoast fence sitters that try to split hairs on issues and kind of take a side that's for principle without understanding the practical reality, or really doing their due diligence to look deeper in the issue and just really confirming what they feel is right. And I think that's what we have today. And I'll tell you a lot of reasons why here as we go forward. So first of all, what am I talking about? What article is particularly bad? It's this article I saw here, and that is this article. Disney is taking Ron DeSantis to court, and they're probably going to win. Now, this is kind of this is posted April 26th, so this is kind of late. To me, it's like, okay, are you just discovering about this case? Like, is this the first time you've woken up and you've discovered this? I mean, I'm glad you're waking up, but I hope you actually do your homework before you write a second article and you actually try to speak to people that know what the hell they're talking about. And this is from supposedly Based Politics with Hannah Cox and Brad Palumbo. It's written by Hannah, so female journalist here. The based ladies, I have opinions on that I've given in the past, but let's just say I see a trend right now of people throwing based on everything and thinking they can just get away by saying, oh yeah, they're super based, and look at this person over here, she's super cool. Listen, guys, I get it. I get it. You're desperate, especially for female figures on the right. But just because they say something does not mean you need to take it in and absorb it as wholesale truth, just because it's a lady saying it and because she spent a couple years working for Taylor Swift. That does not qualify her as an expert in Florida law. So let's see what she actually talks about here in this article. And I'll zoom in here and read the pertinent sections. We're not going to read it all, but I want to get to the parts that deal with the legal argument, because to me, this is if you're making an article and you're saying, okay, he's going to win in court, they're going to win in court, you should go, and this should be entirely legal arguments, not principle, not because I feel like this was a mean thing that he said to Disney, and because this hurts Disney, well, that's mean, and therefore it must be wrong in court. You better get a bunch of lawyers, and lawyers that are experienced in this area. So let's see what she has in this article to back that up. So starts out by saying, okay, Ron DeSantis has been sued by Mickey Mouse, talking about a new federal lawsuit. Not really new, been out there for a while. And the first thing that comes up to me when someone mentions the federal lawsuit is, okay, they've immediately got a bias because they are failing to mention the state lawsuit. And why do they do that? Whenever they just mention the federal lawsuit off the bat, that means they don't have anybody who's competent or qualified to comment on the state lawsuit. She simply didn't question anybody because she didn't do her due diligence, either just doing a basic Google search to understand there's a state lawsuit out there, or she just couldn't contact anybody because she doesn't know them, doesn't know how to talk to them, and just wants to talk to her northern liberal lawyer friends. Because let's look at who she talked to about this case. So she ended up talking to a certain lawyer whose name they give down here, Ari Cohen, a First Amendment and defamation attorney. So this First Amendment attorney says Disney's complaint sets out in damning clarity what is already obvious. Ron DeSantis was peeved that Disney spoke out against his piece of legislation and set out on a warpath to get retribution. And I think the thing that people miss out on here, especially the people that don't know or don't understand, is that this special district was not owned by Disney. I think people treat it like a piece of property. They treat it like an entitlement. They treat it like, maybe one of those northern benefits they're up there getting in those liberal states like Illinois, right? Something they are entitled to. Yeah, it's not that. A special district is a creature of the government, and that's a key distinction. As a creature of the government, as something created by the state, it can be created or destroyed as the state so wills. That's the state's prerogative. It's a delegation of the state's power. It's not the same thing as being given, let's say, a job and that job being terminated. That's much different. And I think that's a huge distinction that these First Amendment lawyers do not understand, because they don't understand what a special district is. They're treating it like something, for example, like giving money directly to somebody and then cutting that off, or giving them a job and cutting that off. And we can see that by the precedent they compare it to here, by saying, in a famous case called O'Hare Truck Service versus City of Northlake, the Supreme Court ruled 7-2 that local governments cannot revoke benefits, even privileges business have no inherent right in retaliation to a company's political opposition. Sure, that's great. That's absolutely right. And they say afterwards, DeSantis's camp seems to be unfamiliar with or unwilling to acknowledge this precedent. They said, we're unaware of any legal right that a company has to operate its own government or maintain special privileges not held by any other business in the state. This is correct. Once again, this is failure to understand Florida law and really governmental law, right? How governments are created and destroyed. This individual, this lawyer, clearly has never created a government. He doesn't understand that delegation of power from the government. He's somebody who sits there and goes, my free speech, right? And if you look over to who he is, Ari Cohen, obviously Chicago, barred only in Chicago, right? Only in Illinois. Sorry, not just Chicago, the state of Illinois. That's incorrect, guys. In Illinois as a state, right? But went to school in Chicago, practices in Chicago. So he's used to First Amendment defamation things up there in that area. Once again, that's a quite different area of law than real estate, than special district, and certainly than governmental law. The power that is derived is not the same, is not generated in the same way. And the case that they use, and I wanted really to go into this case, and by the way, I did read the full case here. You can find that. It's O'Hare Truck Services versus City of Northlake, 518 US 712, 1996 case. I read the whole thing, but for the summary version, we're just going to go over to Oyez and get you the summary, because you guys like the quick and dirty, simple explanation. But let me explain how this case is completely off point and how DeSantis and his team are very much in the right for ignoring it because it doesn't apply. This is something that clearly is much different. So in this case, there were several towing companies that were employed by a city. So a city had multiple towing companies that they employed. They said, okay, we have this list of these towing companies that we use. Well, one of those companies, somebody voted for the mayor's opponent. So they voted for the opponent of the mayor. And because they voted and supported the opponent of the mayor, they were taken off the employee list. And Supreme Court ruled that that indeed did violate the First Amendment, because contractors are treated like employees. This was not a contractor-employee situation. Anybody with 2 brain cells and understanding half of just governmental law would understand that. But these people, these base libertarians, are trying to force a square peg in a round hole. They are trying to force this First Amendment issue where there really isn't a First Amendment issue. There's no contractor-employee relationship here. This is not a benefit. This is not a benefit even to a company. This is an entity that is supposed to be separate from the company. It's not supposed to be controlled by Disney. Find me in the legislation where it says this is to be controlled forever by Disney. No, that's not in there. That's not in there. It's supposed to represent those people living in there and the landowners of that district, including people who are not Disney. It's also supposed to be a public entity, distinct from any company under Florida law. You need to be separate as a public entity. If you are just an alter ego of a public entity, you are not a government under Florida law. That's not how Florida law works. If you are just operating like a private entity, but you're calling yourself a city, a county, a town, whatever, a special district, doesn't matter, you're not really public. You're not really separate. You've got to be looking out for the public benefit, not private benefit. And this is what these people lose. They lose this distinction between public and private benefit. And these base libertarians end up simping and shilling for these corporate interests. And that's what, to me, is so hard to understand, is why do they have to go and just shill for the corporate media? I just don't understand why they got to go for Disney. They got to go for these big corporations. Is that libertarianism? Is that based libertarianism? You guys tell me. This is why I always have a problem with people describing themselves as libertarians. And in the past, when I've done it, I felt dirty because you get folks like this that are just shilling for big corporations. That's not exactly what I consider libertarianism. Yes, if corporations are being treated differently or preferentially, yes, that can be a problem. But I think what we have here is a special benefit. Rather, we have a special benefit that really doesn't exist to that corporation. The benefit, or the creation, was purely the creation of a government, of a neutral body. So any damages only accrued to that body. The entity that would have to have standing would be that entity alone. RCID in the past, or the CFTOD. And what should have happened is RCID should have sued. If they really believed that was unjust, they should have sued. They didn't do that. They had the opportunity to sue and go for an injunction. They could have done that right off the bat. Why didn't they do that? Perhaps because they knew there was no distinction, and perhaps because they wanted to make this argument, right? They wanted to make this political argument to cover for Disney. Remember, Disney is having a series of financial failures. So right now they are trying to paint up for their financial failures with this lawsuit and with this pity me First Amendment argument. We're not buying it here. We've gone through this, we've debunked this, and we've looked at the financial failures, which tie in with this to point out why Disney is making such a big fuss of this to distract from the real issues. They cannot blame everything on Ron DeSantis and the fact that libertarians are trying to ally with leftists in order to side with Disney. So libertarians, leftists, and Disney are trying to team up together. It's a weird alliance. And I hope, frankly, that these folks can be educated. And frankly, I would like to say, I really, truly hope that this journo, that this lady in Tennessee, that she just didn't know, and that she can get educated on this issue and come out to a more nuanced view on this. Perhaps she just discovered this case. It became something fascinating to her, or it trended in the algo, and she can go into a deeper dive, actually contact Florida attorneys, people who know about this sort of stuff, and talk and get a deeper understanding of this. Of course, as you guys know, we will stay on top of this on this channel. It is The Legal Mindset. Make sure you are subscribed. Make sure you comment. Tell me what you think of the First Amendment argument. Tell me if you disagree, agree, if you think I can make a stronger argument somehow, and we'll get into it. If you guys have any other cases, by the way, you say, Andrew, check out this case, let me know in the comments below. Also, another funny thing I'll note before we go here is it's funny that Ari Cohen, a Illinois attorney, did not know that Illinois actually has some of the most special districts of any state in the union. However, the law governing special districts is much different there, as well as, I'll just say this straight up, the special districts in Illinois are far more corrupt than any of the special districts in Florida because of our transparency laws and because of our requirements for open bookkeeping, open meetings, open notice, to an extent that I think is onerous. It's almost crazy how open we are in Florida. Yeah, that's not happening with the shady backroom deals in Illinois. But that being said, I will talk to you later. Take care. Peace.